next Rolex model we're going to talk about is the Explorer II. And as I've said before, if you're the second, that usually means you are following the first. And that's the case with the Explorer II. Back in the early 70s, Rolex was really trying to capitalize by expanding their availability of professional or sport type watches. So in 1971, they introduced the Explorer II. That was the same year they actually released the Sea Dweller. So the Sea Dweller was going for folks who needed water resistancy to great depths. The Explorer II was really designed to attract people who were needing to know the difference between night and day because they were spending a lot of time in an environment that did not allow them to see sunlight. And the advertising that they capitalized on was people doing cave exploration. So they would be in caves for an extended period of time and didn't know if it was night or day. So 9 o'clock didn't tell them if it was 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. So that was the need for the additional hand to help them understand. Well, this is called the Explorer II, and I think because of the advertising with Explorers being used, but they could have just as easily called this watch the GMT Master II. And here's why I say that. They took the technology that was in the GMT Master from 1955, the dual time zone capability, but they improved upon it. And the Explorer II, when it was introduced, had an independent adjustable 24-hour hand. Basically, they improved the complication within a movement so that you could adjust the hour hand only and keep up with different time zones without having to rotate the bezel. As a matter of fact, on this watch, the bezel is fixed. It is a smooth bezel. It is engraved, but it's fixed. It does not rotate clockwise or counterclockwise. My very first Rolex that I ever personally owned was an Explorer II. I'm a big fan of this particular watch, and there were two things about this watch that really appealed to me. The first was the bezel, because it is smooth. It does not have the sharper edges like you find on a Submariner or a GMT Master. And if you're wearing a coat or a dress shirt, sometimes that bezel can act as a saw blade and do a little damage to your cuffs of your shirt or your coat. So that appealed to me because it was very smooth. The other thing I liked about the Explorer II, it did not have that traditional Submariner or GMT Master type look because the bezel was stainless steel. It was not a bezel insert. So a lot of folks would see the watch and they knew it was a nice watch, but they had no clue as to what kind of watch it was. So I like that. I like having a nice timepiece, but I didn't necessarily want it to scream, hey, look at my watch. But it's a very cool timepiece. Rolex stuck to their roots in this, and what I mean by that is they made this watch in stainless steel, and it's still available only in stainless steel. They've not tried to expand or complicate it. It is a Explorer type watch, and it's going to remain in stainless steel forever, I suspect. They kept it very simple with the dial options. You can get either a black dial or a white dial only. There are no other options. One thing I will tell you about the watch, the picture in the top left-hand corner here, when they released this watch back in 1971, the additional hand that made the sweep every 24 hours was a larger orange hand. When they upgraded this watch sometime past then, and I'm sorry I don't know the date, if you look at the other pictures here on the screen, they went to a thinner red hand with a little small white triangle at the end. Well, anytime something's not available anymore, it tends to make it very popular. And Rolex, when people had the older style 24-hour hand, the people who had that found that that was a very collectible timepiece. So the secondary markets were gobbling those up incredibly. So the watch does have the 24-hour adjustable hour hand. Let's demonstrate, show you how to use that so that if you're working with a customer and they say, hey, how does that work? You'll be able to demonstrate. Once again, you need to practice in your downtime. Don't practice on customers, but let's watch and we'll demonstrate how to use that feature. So right now the watch is synchronized 9 in the morning on both hands. But one question I get is, how do you know there's not a 12-hour difference? In other words, how do you know the watch doesn't think that it's 9 p.m. and instead of 9 a.m.? Well, the way to find out is advance the time. And when you go past 12 o'clock, if the date changes, that's when the watch thinks that it is 12 midnight, not 12 noon. So right now we still appear to be synchronized. If we go past midnight here and the date changes, and it did, that means that we are synchronized. So we're going to advance it to 9 a.m., our local time here on the East Coast, and it's pointing at 9 o'clock in the morning on your 24-hour bezel. We're going to keep up with time in Paris, France, 6-hour difference. Pull the stem out to the first setting, back the hour hand up only, 6 hours. Pull the stem all the way out. We're going to advance the time to our local time of 9 a.m. here on the East Coast in the United States. It's going to be 3 o'clock in Paris, so it's going to be pointing at 1500 hours. Well, the exciting news that Rolex has come out with in March of 2011 is they have now redesigned the Explorer II. And I mentioned before we watched the video about the larger 24-hour hand and how everybody really desired that. One of the things that they've done on this particular watch, in addition to making the case larger, it went from a 40 millimeter case size in the older style to now the new ones that we're going to be getting going forward are going to be a 42 millimeter case size. That's exciting. But they've also started using that retro orange 24-hour hand, I call it. It's not designed exactly the same as the original, but it's more closely designed to the original. A great look. Once again, I'm personally a fan of this particular series, and I can't wait to be able to get my hands on one. I think it's going to be a very popular watch. It is equipped with the Parachrome hairspring, so you can get all the benefits of Parachrome technology. It is going to have the heavier buckle and the clasp. They did not go to the trip lock crown and extra protection of water resistancy. It is going to be the twin lock crown, and they did widen up the lugs on it just a little bit on the new redesigned model. So that's coming out. You'll probably still have some of the older styles in your store for a while, but going forward, you're going to have the newly redesigned Explorer II. And I think you're going to have a lot of folks calling, inquiring about that watch. I expect it to be a real big hit, and your customers are going to love it.